You drink coffee in the afternoon or maybe even the early evening, hours pass, you feel awake enough to finish what you planned. Then you lie down, close your eyes, and fall asleep without much effort. In the morning, you may even feel functional. So it's tempting to conclude caffeine didn't affect your sleep. Not necessarily. Falling asleep is only one small checkpoint in a much bigger system. Sleep is not a single switch that flips from awake to asleep. It is a coordinated process inside your brain and body shaped by chemistry, timing, and your individual biology. Caffeine may let you fall asleep but still change the quality and architecture of what happens afterward. To understand why, it helps to know a critical truth. Caffeine does not create energy. Caffeine doesn't manufacture more alertness out of nothing. Instead, it changes what your brain registers as tiredness. All day your mind naturally drifts towards sleep, not because you choose it, but because your brain is accumulating something it uses to measure how long you have been awake. Think of it as sleep pressure slowly building, like pressure in a sealed container. When that pressure rises enough, sleep becomes more likely and easier. That pressure is heavily influenced by a molecule called adenosine. Adenosine gradually accumulates throughout the day, increasing the drive for sleep. It doesn't just make you feel sleepy in a vague, subjective way. At the cellular level, adenosine works by binding to specific receptors, primarily A1 and A2A receptors on nerve cells. When adenosine occupies those receptors, it nudges your brain toward the time to rest signal. Now comes caffeine. Caffeine is structurally similar enough to adenosine to compete with it. When caffeine is present in your bloodstream, it can temporarily block adenosine receptors. In simple terms, it acts like a stand-in occupying the docking sites where adenosine would normally attach. The result is not that your body stops producing sleep pressure, it is that your brain receives a weaker signal that says you are ready to sleep. If you imagine the receptors as small doors, adenosine is the key that turns the door towards sleep. Caffeine slips in like a counterfeit key. The door looks occupied, so the sleep signal feels muted, even though the underlying pressure may still be accumulating. This explains a subtle but important point. Caffeine can make you feel less sleepy without truly eliminating sleep drive. And caffeine does not vanish quickly. Many people assume the effects end once they fall asleep. In reality, caffeine can remain active for hours after you drink it. The time it takes for caffeine levels to drop varies dramatically from person to person. Some people metabolize caffeine relatively fast, others clear it more slowly. Age, genetics, liver enzyme differences, smoking status, certain medications, habitual caffeine use, and even the usual pattern of intake can all shift how long caffeine stays in the system. So even if your eyes close easily, the brain you enter sleep with may still be partially under caffeine's influence. Your experience of falling asleep fine can mask the fact that the chemistry of sleep has already been altered. That brings us back to the morning you remember. You slept, you woke up. That feels like evidence that everything was normal, but sleep has multiple dimensions, and caffeine can affect some of them more than others. Consider these different checkpoints. First, sleep onset. How long it takes to fall asleep after you get into bed. Caffeine can sometimes delay this, even if the delay is small enough that you still call it fine. Second, total sleep time, how much sleep you get before morning. Even if you don't notice it, caffeine may shorten sleep. Third, night awakenings, how often you wake up during the night, even briefly. You might fall asleep quickly and still experience more interruptions later. Fourth, sleep efficiency, the ratio of time spent asleep to time spent in bed. If caffeine causes fragmented sleep, that efficiency drops even when you don't fully recall every wake-up moment. Fifth, sleep depth, how deep parts of sleep feel in terms of brain activity and restorative function, especially during certain stages like deep non-REM sleep. Now, research on caffeine and sleep often points in a similar direction. Caffeine can reduce total sleep time, increase the time it takes to fall asleep, increase nighttime wakefulness, and reduce deeper, more restorative sleep. The most useful way to interpret these findings for everyday life is not to memorize numbers. It is to recognize the pattern. Caffeine can shift sleep from smooth and deep towards shorter, more variable, and less deep, even when you successfully drift into sleep. So you might think, I slept fine because you don't wake up alert and panicked. But physiologically, your sleep may have been shaped differently than it would have been without caffeine. Inside the sleeping brain, that difference matters. Deep, non-REM sleep is strongly linked to slow-wave brain activity, waves that reflect a brain doing its maintenance work, consolidating processes, and supporting sleep homeostasis. During these periods, the brain's rhythms become more synchronized and pronounced, as if the nervous system is temporarily settling into a quieter, more organized mode. sleep pressure, and the brain's need to regulate it are deeply tied to this slow-wave activity. When you deprive yourself of sleep, slow-wave activity tends to rebound, your brain trying to restore balance. Caffeine's receptor blocking effect can interfere with this process. Research suggests that caffeine can reduce slow-wave sleep or alter sleep-related brain activity. However, it is crucial to be careful with how you interpret this. Caffeine does not reliably erase deep sleep entirely for everyone. Your brain may still produce substantial slow-wave activity, and the degree of effect can vary from person to person depending on timing, dose, and individual sensitivity. So instead of thinking caffeine means no deep sleep, it is more accurate to think caffeine can make deep sleep less prominent, less efficient, or differently organized quietly without necessarily changing your subjective feeling of, I fell asleep. Picture yourself lying in bed, eyes closed, your breathing slows, the room is dark. In the mind's eye, imagine the brainwaves shifting, electrical patterns that normally slow and synchronize into deep, non-REM rhythms. Now imagine those patterns being nudged, modified, or partially suppressed because caffeine is still acting somewhere in the system. Meanwhile, the caffeine molecules, warm coffee gold, persistent and stubborn, remain present long enough to continue blocking adenosine receptors. That persistence is one reason caffeine can influence sleep even when your bedtime routine feels successful. And that leads to the most practical truth: timing and dose matter. Caffeine's impact on sleep is not uniform. It depends on how much caffeine you consume and how close that dose is to bedtime. It depends on how quickly your body metabolizes caffeine. It depends on whether you are accustomed to caffeine or unusually sensitive to it. It depends on your age and general physiology. Even the pattern of your caffeine use across days can influence how your body adapts. In general, larger doses taken closer to bedtime cause more sleep disruption. That pattern exists because higher caffeine levels and later dosing mean more receptor blockade persists when you would otherwise be moving into sleep stages that depend on adenosine-driven sleep pressure. But it is also why a rigid universal cutoff time is rarely perfect. You may hear claims that everyone should stop caffeine exactly X hours before bed. For real life, that kind of rule is too blunt. If you are sensitive, caffeine earlier in the evening may be enough to disturb sleep. If you metabolize caffeine quickly and rarely rely on it, you may experience less disruption from a later dose. The same drink can be gentle for one person and disruptive for another. A more realistic approach is to think in probabilities, not guarantees, and to treat your own response as the final experiment. One reason people keep reaching for coffee is that sleep itself can push you into a cycle. When sleep is less restorative, shorter, more interrupted, or slightly shallower, you may wake with fatigue you did not plan for. The next day feels heavier, concentration becomes harder. You may not be fully aware of why you feel off. Then coffee enters as a practical solution. Caffeine provides temporary alertness by blocking the brain's sleep drive signals. It helps you feel capable again, but that temporary benefit can come at a cost. If you drink caffeine later, you may worsen sleep that night. The result can be a loop: fatigue leading to coffee supporting temporary wakefulness, and the next night's sleep becoming more difficult. It helps to imagine the cycle as a simple chain: poor sleep, RON daytime fatigue, RON coffee, temporary alertness, nighttime sleep that is not quite as deep or consolidated. Not everyone becomes trapped in that pattern. Some people drink coffee without noticing meaningful changes. Still, the cycle is common enough to be worth recognizing because it reveals a hidden lever. Sometimes your goal is not to fight tiredness with more caffeine, but to protect the sleep that reduces the need for caffeine in the first place. So how can you use caffeine more intelligently without requiring you to quit? Start with a simple audit done with honesty rather than judgment. Consider your last caffeine dose. When do you take it relative to bedtime? Next, consider your total daily caffeine intake. One late drink may matter more, but cumulative intake can also influence how your body handles caffeine overnight. Then pay attention to your bedtime and your morning. Do you feel truly rested, or do you feel functional but flat? The next step is the experiment. Reduce late caffeine slightly for a week and observe whether your next morning experience changes. Even if you cannot measure sleep stages precisely, you can notice patterns: how quickly you feel awake, whether you feel less fog, whether you sleep through the night with fewer disruptions. Importantly, individual responses vary. What works for your friend may not work for you. Your goal is not to follow a one-size-fits-all rule. Your goal is to identify the timing and dose that keeps caffeine useful while minimizing sleep disruption. For many people, the best compromise is moderate use and earlier dosing, especially for those who know they are sensitive. Coffee can be part of a healthy routine for work and focus. But if your coffee schedule repeatedly pushes sleep depth or nighttime stability in the wrong direction, you may be paying back that alertness with a quieter kind of fatigue. And that brings the message into focus. The question isn't only whether caffeine lets you fall asleep, the better question is whether your brain is getting the sleep it would have had without it. Subscribe to NeuroBrew Future for the science of coffee, the brain, sleep, focus, and human performance.